no, your ass better call somebody.
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans drift in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets Nation? Welcome back to the amazing Mets pregame show here with your guys, CP and Rob. How is everyone doing on this lovely, lovely Tuesday evening ahead of Mets versus White Sox game 2, following a walk-off victory thanks to Francisco Lindor yesterday to take game 1 of this series. The New York Mets are looking to take yet another series here in game 2 with a victory. We'll be talking about the upcoming pitching matchup. We'll be talking about the upcoming lineup discussion and everything that we need to know from what we saw yesterday from the lineup and what to expect today from the lineup, because there is another shift and another change that Carlos Mendoza is deploying in today's lineup. So we'll talk all about it. Appreciate you all being here. Please do smash those thumbs up and subscribe buttons. Rob, how you doing?
A win's a win. I'm doing good. It wasn't the most appetizing victory, but again, a win's a win. I'll take it every day of the week. They got to be better. We all know that. But overall, we got a couple of New York teams playing that wearing orange and blue today that we're expecting wins. So let's get it done and let's win another series.
That's really what it boils down to, right? Getting the job done, situational hitting when the team needs it. They take another 1-for-7 with runners in scoring position. They had other opportunities that they couldn't come through and follow through on. But, in the bottom of the 8th inning, Juan Soto comes up to the plate. It's not, in a hit fashion, but he gets the job done. Sacrifice fly to left field. And that's what you need from your star that you brought in here, is to bring that run home and then push the game along into the later stages, so where you can, win the ball game per se. But, the lineup did look pretty egregious against Adrian Houser. We talked about it on the pregame show yesterday, not knowing what to expect off of Adrian Houser. Of course, former Met last year before he got DFA'd, came over from Milwaukee in the trade that actually also sent Tyrone Taylor here to Queens when David Stearns took over. So, I was not thrilled with the at-bats that they took against Adrian Houser, who went really deep into the ball game. Had a little bit of trouble there, I believe, in that bottom of the 7th inning, was relieved, and the reliever got a really big out. You can see Adrian Houser was pumped up, but nonetheless, the Mets get the job done. I like the terminology, and I don't like it at the same time. A win's a win, because it focuses on the end result instead of the overall process, because the process yesterday simply was not good from the Mets lineup, and there's a lot of room for improvement moving forward, especially in today's ball game. But, one thing that was definitely a positive, and we also talked about this from the offensive standpoint as well, was the lineup change. And the big lineup change yesterday was putting Brandon Nimmo back in that 2-hole. And he responded by going 2-for-4, which is really good to see. So I know you were kind of on the road during the game, and we both had schedule conflicts, which is why we couldn't do the post game. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, please smash the notifications button. You'll get updated if we go live for the post game or if we don't. Same thing applies today. We'll either do it or if something comes up last minute, because it very well could from either of our sides. If not both of our sides, then we won't do it. So you're not left surprised. But what I will say is, what did you think of the Mets at bats? What did you think of Brandon Nimmo? And just everything else in between relating to yesterday's game before we dive into a little bit more of what we should expect to see today.
Overall, I like the at bats. They were better, right? Adrian Hauser, again, go figure, right? A former Met that he clearly had a chip on his shoulder, and that's no excuse for the Mets lineup. They need to be better. You can't wait until the later innings to, actually show a pulse. But you know what? I'm very excited about Brandon Nimmo in the 2-hole. I said that, yesterday's pregame. I just think it's a mentality. It's not about just approach. I just think that, knowing that he doesn't have to do too much, knowing that he needs to be the one getting on base. And again, he got it, he got the double early on, and that was something that I like to see. But it was just the at-bats. Like, he had longer at-bats. He was fouling off pitches. He wasn't over swinging. It's just the little things that certain guys, not all guys, but certain guys, when you put them in certain parts of the lineup, they change either their mental approach at the plate, or they just change their entire approach at the plate. And I think that's what Brandon Nimmo did. Again, he's still uppercut, and he's still, has that launch angle swing. He's still trying to somewhat hit home runs, but he wasn't over swinging. You could see that he choked up on the bat yesterday as well, with something that he hasn't done in a while. He was choking up with 2 strikes. That is something that you have not seen from Brandon Nimmo. That's why I like Brandon Nimmo in the 2-hole, right? We can talk about Vientos all we want. I mean, Vientos is halfway off the lineup if you look at the lineup today. And so, again, who are we putting in the 2-hole if Juan Soto is going to be number 3 right now, right? I think you have to put Nimmo there. Give Nimmo a chance, and I'm not saying give him 1 or 2 days. Give him a couple of weeks. See what he can do in that 2 spot between Lindor and Soto. And, as much as people want to talk about Soto, and I know there's enough people talking in the chat about Soto, and they're not even a fan of this team. The fact is, Soto still helps players around him in this lineup, regardless of if he's hitting or not. It's just obvious. And I'm not saying that having protection, so to speak, for Nimmo is going to be making him a better hitter. But I just think in the 2-hole in general, he just doesn't look like he has to do too much. And the other thing, Alvarez. Okay, I don't like him in the 9-hole, to be quite honest with you. But I do like Beatty bat 5th. I do like that, by the way. But overall, I like the better at bats. Now they can't hit. Like, we all know that they cannot hit with people on base, right? They couldn't even get on yesterday, let alone drive people in. So Adrian Hauser, I mean, all his pitchers were working yesterday, and we talked about this a while back when the Mets acquired Adrian Hauser. He's a professional pitcher. He's a guy that if he's getting his fastball and locating it, his pitchers can be very hard to hit. But again, it should have been that hard to hit him yesterday. So they just got to go out there and do better, all of them. And, it was nice to see late in the ball game with Juan Soto and then Lindor with the sac fly. They actually played a little bit of better baseball in the 9th inning. The best at-bats were in the 9th inning. And that is something that they have to take over to today's game and in future games to come.
Yeah, and something else that was, listen, Adrian Hauser, we did talk about him last season when we first acquired him. He's like a little bit of a Mr. Consistent type of guy where he'll go out there and you know what you're going to get from him. But this is like the first 2 starts with him in a White Sox uniform. I think he signed his 1-year deal with them like a week ago, and he has 2 starts under his belt in that time frame. He's looked absolutely tremendous. I mean, 6+ innings of 0-run baseball for Adrian Hauser in his first 2 starts. Now, do you expect that to keep up? Who cares? It's the White Sox, right? But it's good to see him at least finding some success elsewhere. The fastball and the changeup. I noticed the changeup was a really big problem for the Mets yesterday. A lot of late action on the changeup, and again, a lot of expanding the zone. And I don't know what you want to boil that down to. For me, I boil it down to just the inability to have good pitch recognition out of the pitcher's hand. And that's something that Juan Soto himself has been struggling with as well, even though he knows the strike zone very well. It just seems like he hasn't been picking up particularly the off-speed pitches well, but even the fastballs, right? He's not really doing damage off the fastballs, especially the higher velocity, because I think he's guessing up there at the plate, and I think he's all out of sorts in terms of what his approach should be. You and I say it all the time. I think a lot of people who grew up playing the game of baseball know this from a hitting perspective. I would like to think that professional hitters carry the same approach as well, because it just makes sense. Instead of working backwards, you attack the fastball, look fastball, and then adjust off speed. And I know it's a little bit harder to do for a guy that's throwing 96, 97, 98, but when you have a guy that's throwing 92, 93, maybe even 94, it's a little bit easier. It's not that much easier because it's still 90 plus coming at you from a short distance, but it's a little bit easier. So good job on the band there too. I was actually, it was funny because I was talking to a Yankees fan today on social media, and they kind of, I guess, replied to a comment from me about when in the offseason when I responded, right, to them about Soto. And they kind of were like trying to follow up saying, how is he doing? I said, Soto's numbers are still better than Aaron Judge's postseason numbers. So I'll take that. You know what I mean? So listen, at the end of the day, it's really not. It's not a Mets versus Yankees thing anymore. It's not. I mean, he chose one team over the other to go long term. But listen, let's talk about the game. The defense was really good yesterday. I'll give that to the Mets. The defense was really good. I know there was a couple of plays that were awesome. Brett Beatty was awesome over there. Brandon Nimmo had a really, really, really good catch on that foul line in left field as well. Good to see that range from Brandon Nimmo. You know, the defense was good, and they kept the team in the ball game. They kept Clay Holmes in the ball game, and the bullpen was also really good. So again, from the pitching side of things, really good stuff. And then you have a team that has championship caliber aspirations. I know it's the White Sox. I understand it's the White Sox, and I understand that they're playing for nothing. They're a garbage team, straight up. No disrespect, but they're a garbage team. You are supposed to, at the very minimum, if it gets that late into the ball game and it's a close ball game, you would hope it's not, but if it is, you're supposed to win that ball game in the fashion that the Mets did, and they did just that. Really good at bats in the ninth inning. Really good at bats, I would say, also to set up that Juan Soto sacrifice fly in the eighth inning. And I'm trying to remember how it played out too, because I was on the move. I was watching. I was not home. I think, did Brett Beatty hit a grounder that he beat out? What would have been a double play? I forget how the sequencing went in the eighth inning. But regardless, you know, they get the job done, and that's all that matters. Now the Mets are 12 games over 500. And the one thing is the runners in scoring position. The runners in scoring position really needs to be improved upon, right? We can say a win is a win, and that's great. And that's very accurate. I'm always going to take wins versus the losses. But they need to figure out how to hit with runners in scoring position. So I think that this one lineup change here that you see on your screen with Brett Beatty batting fifth, I know he took the 0 for yesterday. He was putting decent at-bats together, right? Even though the end result wasn't there, he was putting decent at-bats together, as he has been for the past 2 weeks. I like the lineup change as well with Brett Beatty in that fifth hole, but you kind of give and you take. You give and you take here, because what was a strength at the bottom of your lineup and evening out and lengthening your lineup with Brett Beatty down there, you don't really have that as much anymore. So very curious in terms of how today goes. But I also agree with you. I like Brett Beatty in the fifth hole.
Yeah, I think it's important to start throwing somebody in the fifth hole. Like I think Nimmo's going to be a mainstay in this 2-hole for a little bit, and we got to find that equilibrium of who's going to be that 5 hitter. And right now, Beatty, like you said, he had an 0 for yesterday, but I like him in the 5 spot because again, McNeil. I do like McNeil in the bottom of the order though. Only because he kind of like balances out the terrible at bats from Alvarez and Vientos over and Young again in the DH spot, which is interesting to me. And again, I think you're right, Chris, when you said yesterday. I think Acuna is going to get sent down. The way they're not playing him is kind of eye opening, to be honest. And honestly, I'd rather have Alvarez get sent down than Acuna. But because you saw the speed from Acuna yesterday as well, that that was important. Or the other day that you just like the speed, and I think he can bring something to the table. But it's obvious what the Mets are doing here. When Ronnie Mauricio was ready, Acuna's going to get sent down, unfortunately. it just seems like that's the case, right? They like Beatty. Beatty has been more productive this season than Acuna. Like, even with the stretch of 2.5 weeks or almost 3 weeks of Brett Beatty, he's been more productive than Acuna. And I think the what the Mets are looking at here, I know I'm going outside the box a little bit, but it is eye opening that he's not in the lineup, today, is the fact that Acuna is not a run producer, and the Mets need run producers right now. And Brett Beatty, even though it's only a couple of weeks, he's been producing runs. Either it's via the home run or getting big RBIs. Acuna is a table setter, which, again, nothing wrong with that. It's just that, when you're in the lineup, it seems like the RBI spots find you. And, they talked about it on the broadcast yesterday, that, the Mets move Juan Soto to the number 3 hole, and the RBI situations still find him, right? So it's going to find you, unfortunately. It is unfortunate that Acuna is going to get the short end of the stick. But again, when you're not producing and this team has hard time scoring runs, you need people that are potential run producers. And I don't think Acuna is that, at least to this point right now. And it's unfortunate.
We said it yesterday in the pregame show. It's a different timetable. That's why if it is Acuna, listen, I was the biggest Acuna supporter, and he was proving me right there for a second before he kind of went and fell off a little bit. And you just got to realize that situations change, and his approach really has changed for the worse in terms of expanding the zone and being susceptible to the inside pitch, like you were saying yesterday. I don't mind it. The kid's 22 years old, going on 23. His timetable is a little bit further away, quote unquote. I know that he's appeared right at the major league level for the Mets a handful of times already, but think about the 24-year-olds, the 25-year-olds going on 26-year-olds, Vientos, Beatty, Mauricio. How many times have they been up and down? The same thing is going to be said for Luis Angel Acuna. And if Acuna was 25 years old, right, alongside Brett Beatty and Vientos, etc., then I would not be saying this. But I have no issues. If Acuna is the guy to get sent down, I've got no issues with that. And the only reason why I think that they won't send down Alvarez is, at that point, clearly Torrens is going to get bulk playing time moving forward, at least you would hope, with the discrepancy and the differences of each of these guys' play. Hayden Sanger did a really good job defensively, but you get nothing with the bat. Although you get nothing with the bat right now, pretty much with Francisco Alvarez, I just think that the upside, and if Francisco Alvarez does figure it out, I think that they'll be a little bit more reluctant to send Alvarez down for a guy like Hayden Sanger, who's just strictly there for defense, and you already have that strength defensively with Luis Torrens anyways. So I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing. I still think Mauricio is a couple of weeks away. I don't think it's going to be a next week type of thing, even though he's played in 15, 16 minor league games at this point since his return. But I think that with what the Mets have right now, this lineup, before we get into anything, pitching wise, because we have to talk about Tyler McGill as well. What I will say, look at all these Dodgers trolls in your chat, Rob. That is hilarious to me.
Yeah, that's the same guy that has like 47 accounts.
Different accounts. Yeah, that makes sense. What I was gonna say is, now I lost my train of thought. What I was going to say is Jared Young, still seeing him DHing. This is the thing, right? I still stand by this, that the best combination of a lineup that you could possibly throw out there is Vientos DHing, Brett Beatty playing third base. Whether you want Acuna or McNeil, I think we all would sign up for McNeil at second base right now offensively, right? And Tyrone Taylor in center field. That is your best configuration offensively and defensively, everything taken into consideration. But as I said yesterday, we will continue to see the shuffling, right? Because this is still a time period where Carlos Mendoza feels comfortable enough in the season. The Phillies don't really have that big of a division lead. The Mets are 12 games over 500, so they've still been winning ball games, albeit in a little bit uglier fashion. I feel like Mendoza thinks he has time to try all these different combinations before he has to make a solidified decision to see what works. And that's fine with me. If that's the approach that he's taking, I'm fine with that. I really am. But that's the only reason why I think that we are seeing Jared Young continuously being the DH for the Mets, in which we've seen a handful of times. Now, I don't know anything about Jonathan Cannon. I'm going to assume, because we know that Mendoza loves to have lefties in the lineup versus righties, I would assume that Cannon is a righty. But yeah, I mean, Jared Young has potential in his bat, but we haven't seen it yet. And for me, knowing that there's one A-tier lineup combination out there, and we haven't really seen it all that consistently as of recent, it just makes me feel like Mendoza is waiting until he needs to make that decision of like, this is my A lineup. I'm going to it pretty much every single day.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it last year when it came to June, when the Mets started actually, producing at the top of the order, it was 1 through 5. You know who was going to be 1 through 5. It changed every now and then with Vientos at number 2, Nimmo number 5, and vice versa. But it was always your 1 through 5 with the same names, unless they got an off day. Like that was the only time you seen that lineup change. But again, it's the inconsistency. It's the lack of performances by Nimmo, by Vientos, and others that should have been in this 5 hole, even in the cleanup spot for that matter, before they made the lineup adjustment for the top 4. That has been the issue. And I have no problem with Mendoza still trying to figure it out. That's why Young is playing every day as a DH. I know somebody in the comment, I forgot who said it, but they've been pinch hitting for him every game. Yeah, because he's not doing enough while he gets the opportunity, and they'll change to a right-handed bat if need to, if they bring in left-handers, as you've seen the last couple of games. So, I don't blame Mendoza for throwing out Young out there, because I know people want to see Vientos DH and Brett Beatty at third and Acuna at second base. But again, we notice what the Mets are doing here. Acuna does not bring anything to the table right now other than the speed, but he's not getting on base either. And that's the other issue, why he's not playing. And with Young, they're looking for lightning in a bottle in the DH spot. You lost Winker, would help Beatty get back in the mix, but Beatty's going to play the field. So this is where we are right now with just the DH spot. If you're just talking about that, why I think that, I disagree with Chris when it comes to Mauricio. I think it's going to happen a lot sooner, and I wouldn't be shocked. I said June 1st. I think that's going to be the case. And usually they like to bring these kids. Usually want to bring them at home and not on the road, but that might be the best thing for him. Just, calm him down a little bit, throw him in a lineup, and put him on the road. We'll see if that's the case in the next couple of days when we finish the month of May. But, do I like Jared Young? No. But clearly they're taking a look at somebody in a spot where they don't have no production in that spot. And that's a fact. So do I like it? No. But I understand the understanding and the thought process when it comes to Mendoza, when your DH spot is kind of lost at this point. And your number 5, let's hope our 1 through 5 is this for the next 4 months, right? Let's just hope that. If Vientos has to be a number 6 hitter, oh well. It is what it is. That just makes the lineup deeper if he starts to get going a little bit. But overall, I just feel like he's still looking for that right lineup where you can go in every day and Mendoza does not have to worry about the top 5. He knows the top 5 is going to be this. And that's the big reason why the Mets have lost a lot of these games. They're 12 games over 500, and they're 30th in baseball in runners in scoring position. They were talking about it yesterday. They're right behind the White Sox. Right in front of the White Sox. Like, that's a problem. Right behind the White Sox and another, I think, Pittsburgh. Like, that's the problem, Chris,
So I hear you. I'm going to disagree with you in terms of, I understand the lightning in the bottle, quote unquote, like take on that and that aspect. But I will say, if we're talking about Acuna not getting playing time and potentially being sent down, and we're talking about not putting out the A lineup, because I think that we can all agree this is not the A lineup that we're seeing in this game. At least I don't think so, right? I don't think that Jared Young is equivalent to the A lineup. And McNeil is not the, playing in center field is not your A lineup because Tyrone Taylor's not there. Yeah. It's not. So, but if you have, like we've seen McNeil in center field on a handful of occasions, this would be the game to play Luis Angel Acuna and get him those reps. This is exactly the game.
That's why it's eye-opening. Like
Right.
that's why and that's what I'm saying. Like it's so easy to DH Vientos, play Beatty at third, put Acuna at second. You got all the guys that you were expected to be in this lineup, from opening day because of what we hope they can be. All of them can be, and that's why it's eye opening. That's why I think Acuna's a few days away from getting sent down. And again, this is why I don't like the fact that the situation where they're playing with Acuna, or they were playing at Beatty early in the year as well. They're not playing these guys. The growth is not happening, especially from a 22-year-old Acuna. That's why I would have never brought him up in the first place. I understand that he helped us earlier in the season, but I just feel like there's nothing that you're gonna what you want. You don't want him just to be a table setter long term. You want him to be a guy that could be a leadoff hitter, could be a number two, could bat ninth as well. But I project him to be a leadoff hitter at some point. When Lindor gets a little bit older, I would like Acuna at that top spot because of his speed. But he needs to learn to, get on base more, and that's taking your walks, lower them strikeouts a little bit, and get that average up more. Or you're kind of, an average ball player. You're kind of a fringe major leaguer at this point, and that's why I just don't like the stunt, the growth that he could have at the minor league level, and putting them up here and playing them, twice a week is not doing anything. Pinch running him almost every game. What is that doing? He knows how to run. We know that. So that's why I get frustrated with the Mets and how they're, in particular, dealing with Acuna right now, because it doesn't make no sense to not play him every day. It just doesn't.
Today is not the best day to bring this up because, again, the Mets are playing good baseball. Winning baseball, I should say. They're not playing good baseball because I won't categorize this as good baseball, offensively especially, but they're playing winning baseball, being 12 games over 500. There is a pattern over the last few years, and we're not gonna talk about it here, right? For hours on end. But what Pantrese is saying in the chat definitely has some validity. When I take a look at the trajectory of some of these younger players that have come up for the New York Mets and how inconsistent they've been and how much struggles, they've had to endure and that we've seen from them, there is a common theme here. Alvarez, right? What are we getting from Alvarez right now? Pretty much nothing. Vientos at one point, right? Prior to last season and now going back to some more bad habits, same thing. Brett Beatty, a top prospect at one time, and it's just now that he's finally starting to take over per se. Luis Angel Acuna, who exploded onto the scene last year and now is struggling again. Like, I feel like with the younger players, you go and see them back in AAA, AA, wherever it is, and they make the adjustments and they start heating up a little bit, right? Especially with Vientos, especially with Brett Beatty. Can't really say the same for Luis Angel Acuna because he hasn't had those minor league numbers that are kind of like eye-popping, but you see it with Ronnie Mauricio as well. There is a pattern of young players not being developed correctly when they step foot onto the major league diamond and when they've gotten their chance. And I think that there's going to be a conversation at some point if this train keeps rolling along, right, with this hitting at the major league level of philosophy changes for hitting, approach changes. Francisco Alvarez, I will just say it and I'll respond to Pantrese's comment. I didn't see the video that she's talking about, but all I could say is that I was saying in the offseason when they changed Francisco Alvarez's mechanics, they are taking a huge gamble by changing his mechanics. He is a power hitter. I don't care. He's not going to hit probably for 270, 280 average, right? He's never been that player. We didn't expect that to be him. But when they changed his mechanics, they were committing to stunting his power upside because those mechanics, and I was watching him all off season, the drills that he was doing, the new sort of load up that he was doing, whatever it was to get him more on time with the pitch. But the mechanics, the power of it goes out the window to what I assessed, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's a problem, Rob. I'm sorry. I don't care if Alvarez is ever going to be a 270, 280 hitter. I've already accepted that he's not. He needs to put 25 plus baseballs over the fence. That's what he needs to do. And I don't think they set him up for success this offseason with the whole mechanical change. Now, he did struggle again last season. It was an up and down filled year. I understand that. He had his old mechanics. He also was still injured, which has been a common problem for him as well. So I don't know what it is. It goes beyond coaching, but I do think that philosophically there is something off with the way that the Mets are approaching this. And that's all I'll say. I don't have many other answers to that, but there's a lot of chatter amongst Mets fans on social media, a lot of content creators, a lot of whatever talking about that. And I don't know, Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes, one or if not both, someone's going to have to get held accountable. Really,
I
it's
agree.
just true.
Like I agree with the Alvarez thing. Like, I don't know what, I understand they were trying to make him be more pitch selective and put bat onto ball a little bit more. But, we never heard in Alvarez, even in the minor leagues, he was going to be a high average guy. He was going to be a power guy. And a guy who's a catcher who is going to be off twice a week, because obviously he's going to have days off as a catcher. This is a guy that I want to start 4 or 5 days a week and hit 25 plus bombs. That's what I want from him. That is the perfect number 5 hitter. A 5 hitter that you're not going to have a guy that's going to hit crazy average. You're going to have a guy that has some power, especially if you have guys on base. And the fact that they tried to mess with his mechanics, and on top of that, he's been injured, which again, that's not the Mets' fault. It just happens. He's been injured, so we can't work on whatever they're trying to work on. He can't work on because again, he hasn't had a full spring training. Also, which is the other issue that, he's injury prone. He got better defensively, which is nice to see, but you can't be a zero at the plate. And we can blame everybody. We can blame Chavez. We can blame Barnes, and Alvarez has a blame. I say this many times, fire Chavez, fire Barnes. Is this going to change the runners in scoring position? Probably not. It comes down to the regular guys. Now, I do agree that they fucked with Alvarez way too much, in my opinion. And I think Chavez, they always have this special little project on the side. And this goes for every team, by the way. Go to every team's hitting coach. They always got that special little project on their roster that they want to deal with. That goes for pitching coaches, hitting coaches, etc. So, and Chavez, and I listened to a little bit of the podcast that they talked about Alvarez, and Chavez should be fired because of that, by the way. I only listened to like 2 minutes of it. He was basically, to break it down just a little bit so everybody can watch it and get their own opinions, he was basically saying that why they were trying to change his approach and mechanics. And it's basically more contact. Like it's stupid. It really is. Like, you want more contact? Have that special project being Luisano Acuna. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
That's what I don't understand.
Exactly.
Like, look, Alvarez, why do you want him to have a little bit more contact? Like, I understand the thought process. All right, let him get more contact, and then we'll get back into his power, thought process. Like, it's just a corrupt way the Mets.
They did the same thing with Brett Beatty, by the way, and now Brett Beatty is trying to break out of that. He's trying to revert back to his old ways.
It's not surprising that, and everybody's like, oh, Brett Beatty is a quadruple A player. Maybe it's just that he don't have Chavez and Barnes in his head in the minor leagues, when he's in AAA, and he just goes out there and hits and stops thinking so much about what these guys are saying. And I think he took that approach once he finally came back and said, fuck this, I'm not listening to people anymore. Chavez needs to worry about contact with Luisano Acuna or other guys that, like Jeff McNeil for that matter. Like the guys like that, especially Acuna for that matter, that contact means everything. He can beat out a ball that's right to the third baseman or right to the shortstop because of his speed. You got to find contact for him. And that's why, like, we can talk about little things that, it's not the hitting coach's fault for every problem this lineup has had. But it's little things like that where it's like, come on. Like, you got to be smarter than that. And I agree, whoever said, I think it was whoever said it in the chat, I agree. I listened to 2 minutes of that, and I'm like, this guy needs to be fired. Like, not because I think the Mets are going to go from 30th in runners in scoring position to 15th or 12th in runners in scoring position after they fire him, but it's just the thought process they have with certain players. Like, they want this special pet project. So if they're successful in their lineup, they're gonna be like, Chavez's like, yeah, well, it was me telling him what to do and him, putting it out there in the batter's box. It's like, do you want glory and you want some, credit for certain guys, or do you want a successful guy that, gets better over time? You don't stunt these guys' growth when they've been one way their entire career in the minors. And Alvarez was just a power guy. We never heard about average with Francisco Alvarez, and with Acuna, maybe he's just a bench player that comes in for pinch running and plays twice a week. Maybe he is, but let's see him when he's batting, 270, 280 and has more walks, less strikeouts. Like, work with him on that. And that's where I think some of these hitting coaches on just baseball in general, they rather focus on one guy that probably doesn't need a lot of change and then leave the other guys alone, and they kind of falter and everybody blames them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a team offense that is ranked 23rd in total team strikeouts. So they're bottom 10 in total strikeouts. Okay, that should mean that everything's going well, right? They're making more contact according to the philosophy. Then why aren't we impressed with what the offense is doing right now? So I think there is a perfect mix and there's a perfect blend. But I think that, like you said, Rob, they have to pick and choose their battles and they have to understand the personnel. And that's where I don't think that this hitting coach duo, whether it's one of them or whether it's both of them, don't understand how to go about instilling an approach that works for everybody, but on an individual level. You said it. If you want to prioritize contact, go work with Luis Angel Acuna, because he has the tools to be successful for contact, no matter where he hits it. Alvarez is not that type of player. There's other things that he should be working on, being a more well-rounded hitter, etc. I get that. But yeah, man, I don't know. So anyways, I didn't mean to take over this conversation with that, but if you have anything else to add on to it, I'm gonna be done talking about that until a future date. But that's a problem. I will say.
I know a lot of people are complaining about Jerry Young being in the lineup, and me and Chris agree about that, right? It should be Vientos DH and Beatty and Acuna playing. But again, when your DH is non-existent in this roster right now and nobody is stepping up, Jerry Young does one thing well. He hits for power. Now, we haven't seen that yet in a Mets uniform. But again, we talked about the fifth or sixth spot, or at least the DH for that matter. I don't need a DH to be a 300 hitter, right? All you do is hit. Now, if you have a 300 hitter that doesn't have a lot of power, I'm fine with that. I'd rather have a DH that just hits balls over the wall. That is the idea that the Mets are thinking of, Stearns and Mendoza, why Jerry Young is here, right? Jesse Winker, we're not looking for him. He was a guy that probably could bat 270, 280, and give a little bit of pop. So Winker made sense as a DH, and obviously we all like Winker coming back. But at this moment, no matter who you put there, even if you put Vientos there, he has not shown the power that he's shown last year at this point. So the Mets are looking for a DH right now that provides some pop. Because what does a home run do in the 6 hole, right? You might have 1 or 2 guys on. So you're not, at the bottom of the order, you're not expecting high average guys. So what are you looking for? You're looking for a guy to jump on a pitch to hit a 2-3 run homer. That's the idea that they're looking at right now with the DH spot. The DH has been a complete zero for the New York Mets since the DH has been existing. Like that is sad. Like, I was so excited when the National League, adopted the DH, because I was like, holy shit, the Mets finally can actually put a guy who they sit down every day on the bench and put him in the DH spot. It hasn't worked. How many years has DH been here? 6 years, 5 years? Since right before the pandemic, I think, or right during the pandemic, whatever the hell it was. But Jared Young, the DH spot has been a hole for the Mets for as long as we can remember, since it's been in existence in the NL. The problem right now is that the DH isn't helping the Mets offense. So what are you looking for at this point right now with Winker being out? Yeah, we would like Vientos at the DH spot so you can play Acuna and Beatty. But what they're looking for right now with the runners in scoring position issue is somebody that can hit the ball over the wall. Jared Young has done that in the minors, and he's done it in the KBO. He's shown power. in his, professional career. So the Mets are looking for just somebody that can hit the ball over the wall. And maybe getting adjusted to major league pitching right now, maybe he will do that. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise. But right now, it doesn't look good playing him every day. But again, who are you putting in the DH spot if you're going to play Vientos at third base? Right? They're not playing Acuna. They're just not.
Hashtag for me, hashtag sign Kyle Schwarber 2026. Fix all your worries at the DH spot with one signing.
Phillies make him don't re-sign him, they're idiots. I mean, it'd be good for us, but
yeah, of course.
Like I agree. I wanted Schwarber from day one before the Phillies got him, and they need a guy like that. I don't give a shit. What do you want? $20 million? Give it to him because he's worth it. You can bat him anywhere in the lineup. Lead off.
You think he prioritizes contact?
Yeah, 400 feet.
I don't. Right, exactly. I was gonna say they don't prioritize no contact. The dude's hitting 210, 40 home runs. Nobody's complaining. Nobody's batting an eye because he's putting the ball over the fence. Now, I'm not saying 210 is good by any stretch of the imagination, but you get my drift here. It's like players like that make me, just like open my eyes and like, the Mets need a guy like that.
They do.
They need a guy like that. So, anyways, let's talk pitching before we get out of here. And yes, I am rocking my New York Knicks jersey. It is game 4 today. I need the series evened up. I need it. We all need it if you're a Knicks fan. I know that there's some Pacers fans in the chat. Shout out to Ant. Appreciate you being here. But you know what? Knicks in 6 would be great. But yeah, let's do it. So we got both games going on. By the way, a little bit of an update due to weather. Tomorrow's finale with the White Sox, with the Mets and Queens, has been pushed up to a day game, 1:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep an eye on that. Probably will be good to go for both streams tomorrow as well. Keep you updated on those as the updates come out from our scheduling perspective. But let's talk pitching. Again, I usually have a scouting report for pitchers. I don't, because I don't really know anything about Jonathan Cann. I think he's got like a 3.7 ERA if I checked it correctly. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know what he throws. Usually I come prepared and give you a little bit of a rundown on that based off of what I see from Savant. But let's just talk about Tyler McGill before we get out of here, because Tyler McGill has not been good from the way that I see things over his last 3 starts, especially with the length perspective, right? Like he's gone 4 2/3 innings, twice in the last 3 starts, and I forgot one outing was even shorter than that, I think. So it doesn't matter what it is. Not worried about the exacts here, but he hasn't been good, and the length hasn't been there. He has not been pitching, because he's had really good starts, like on a handful of occasions this season. He has, but it's just about the efficiency with this guy. I don't know how many times and how long we're going to have to keep talking about Tyler McGill and his ability to be an efficient pitcher. He has the put away stuff. He has all the tools to be successful. He does. I see it in him. All the advanced metrics, analytics, etc., say that he should be better than what he is right now. And that's been the case since as long as I can remember over the past few seasons. But he hasn't been able to put it together.
Yep.
At the very minimum, we need length out of Tyler McGill today. I need him to get back on track, at least until the Mets have to make a decision on him. When Montas gets back, when Manaea gets back, I think Manaea is scheduled to throw a bullpen this week, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, where are you at with Tyler McGill? I mean, he's got a 3.7, maybe north of that ERA, just a little bit. Hasn't really looked great his last 3 outings, has the stuff. It's the same conversations we've been having surrounding Tyler McGill for as long as we can remember, Rob, talking on this, on this team together. Like, what do you make of this start? What does he got to do? What are your predictions for him, first off?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's so frustrating with Tyler McGill, because we know the stuff is there. Like, you could just put us on repeat, with him. It's frustrating because he does have the stuff. Look at it early. Look at the first inning. If he doesn't have his fastball, it's going to be a long night. I don't care who you're facing. He needs to dominate this White Sox lineup. I mean, this is not a good lineup. Like, it just wasn't. It really wasn't a good lineup at all. It's not a good lineup. He needs to be good against this lineup. He has the stuff to do that. Like, he needs to work that fastball letter high. If he works it letter high, top of the zone, they're not going to hit it, and then use every other pitches, off-speed breaking ball pitches, knees to ankles. That's where he needs to work. And he don't have his fastball. He has no idea what to do with the rest of his pitches. And he's just a lost puppy when he doesn't have his fastball. And it's sad to say because he shows spurts of holy shit, this guy is good. And then he looks like, an average pitcher. And then the next game, he'll look like, a quadruple A pitcher where he belongs in the minors. I don't know what to expect tonight. The only thing that I can say is that would I be shocked if he pitches 6 innings with 2 runs? No, because it's the White Sox. But if we come on, if there's a post, if when we do a post game, they'll be like, oh, he gave up 6 runs in 3 innings. We'll be like, yeah, that's Tyler McGill. So I don't know. Like, I hope he's good tonight. How about this? Keep us in the ball game because the Mets will find a way to win a ball game because they've done it all year without the runners in scoring position. So Tyler McGill, step up because your days are numbered. Frankie Montas is a couple of weeks away, and sometime mid-June or so, Frankie Montas might be taking your spot. So you better get it together and have the Mets have a conversation to think about keeping you instead of making it an easy choice. And with Cannon, 3.76 ERA, not terrible, especially for a White Sox team. He's 3.76 ERA and he's 2-5. So that just tells you that the White Sox don't score runs. So get 3 runs or more and you probably win the ball game. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think. Listen, with Tyler McGill, it's self-explanatory. We'll be able to see. I mean, the 4th inning too. You mentioned the 1st inning. I'm going to mention the 4th inning. Like that's his kryptonite inning, so to speak. So, he could be cruising first 3 innings, and the 4th inning rolls around, and 2 walks in a row. Now he's in trouble. So I want to see him get past that threshold. I'm taking a look at one particular guy that I am very impressed with in this month of May. Very impressed with. I mean, we were having conversations in April, what do we do with this guy? Are we going to get the same version of him from 2022? Edwin Diaz has not surrendered a single run since May 4th. He has lowered his ERA, which was above 4 to 2.42. I mean, Edwin Diaz is looking lights out. There's nothing else to say.
Confident. You know what he's doing? He's throwing his fastball. That's the big thing. He's not getting away from his fastball. We all know what Diaz. Once he gets slider happy, he's in trouble. When he throws that fastball consistently, first off, you're throwing 98 to 100. Nobody's touching that. It's just not. With his movement, nobody's touching that. And then occasionally, flaking that slider, he's untouchable right now. And let's be honest, he's probably one of the better closers in baseball right now. He's 12 for 12 in save situations or 11 for 11 in save situations. Got the win yesterday, coming into a tie ball game and giving the Mets opportunity to win the ball game in the bottom of the 9th. Edwin Diaz has been outstanding, man. Really been outstanding. It's good to see.
Really good to see. I mean, 2 pitches, like you said, 4-seam fastball, averaging just around 97 miles per hour. I mean, he can rear back and throw it up to 100. We know that. We've seen that. But, opponents are hitting 114 off of his fastball. He's throwing it for 51.2% of the time. The slider is coming in right around 90 or 89 miles per hour. So that's around a 7 mile per hour difference, 8 mile per hour difference, which is exactly what you want to see. But, I look at 48, just about 49% versus 51%. It's pretty even. So it looks like he's also keeping the hitters guessing, but the confidence and the location of his fastball is something that's been much improved since the month of April. So that's why we're seeing that success. And, in comparison, 114 batting average against his fastball versus a 179 batting average against his slider. I mean, there's really nothing that I could say, right, to be honest. And the put away percentage for both pitches are pretty much dead even. So the opposing hitters aren't figuring out either of those pitches right now. And let's just hope it stays that way. He's been phenomenal. Other guys in his bullpen, like Brazaban, have been phenomenal. I mean, bullpen and rotation, not really my concern. Let's get this offense going often and early in today's ball game. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Put some runs up. Make it a laugher, please. No 2-1, no walk-off victory. Make it a laugher. Make it a laugher, because I want to just put all my attention on the Knicks game when it rolls around. You know what I mean? I want to put the Knicks on the big screen and have the Mets playing on the computer. That's what I want.
Exactly.
So that's it. So anyways, that's my final thoughts. Go out there, win a ball game. Again, keep the notifications buttons on both of our channels to get notified if we go live for the post game. I think we'll have an answer whether we're going to do a post game or not, in the next hour, 2 hours, something like that. So it's going to be during the game, and we'll keep you updated. But at the very minimum, day game tomorrow, one of us will be live for the pregame, if not both of us. And postgame, I think we should both be good for the postgame, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
absolutely.
We'll be there for the postgame tomorrow for sure. Would love to have a postgame, a quick one during the Knicks game tonight, but we'll keep you updated. So, Rob, final thoughts here before we sign off.
Yeah, overall, the offense needs to get going. That's something that we've been saying for 53 games, 54 games now. Let's get it together. Let's have a blowout. It would be nice that I could turn this game off and just, turn on the MLB app and just see what's going on every now and then and have the Knicks on the big screen, like Chris said. Get it together. I want to see Tyler McGill pitch like he's an actual pitcher. That would be nice. And the lineup to show up tonight. Like, let this be a laugher. We need a laugher. It would be nice, right? I'm sick of stressing in the ninth inning against teams like the White Sox. It's very annoying. Overall, 12 games over 500. As bad as they've been with runners in scoring position, they're still 12 games over 500. So they're good somewhere. And it's been the pitching, bullpen and starting pitching that's been carrying this team for the first quarter of the season already. And this is the date of demarcation, right? Usually Memorial Day is the day where you start looking at, stand-ins, wild card, how good is this team is, given like a grade for this team. And right now I can give probably a B- because of the pitching. The offense hasn't been there yet. But this time last year is when the offense went from 3.5 runs per game to 5 runs per game. That's a huge jump. A run and a half is a huge jump. And I do expect these guys to come through because the back of the baseball cards says so. So overall, let's get it done tonight, guys. Let's win another series, dominate at home like we have. And guys, make sure you put that notification button on, because if we're going live or not, you'll have an idea if the post game is on or pregame or anything else that we post. So make sure you hit that bell to put those notifications on, guys. And let's go Mets.
Absolutely. Let's go Mets. Hit the bell, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe. You know what to do. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing out for us and supporting the stream, whether you're watching from X, whether you're watching from YouTube. We definitely appreciate the support. Let's go Mets. Let's go Knicks. Let's go win a series. Peace.